Welcome to the Sunmall podcast, where we interview the stars of e-commerce. Today we have Saurav of Marmeto, one of the premier Shopify Plus agencies. Saurav, really excited to have you here today. Maybe you can talk about a little background of how you got started with Marmeto and into the world of e-commerce.
Got it. Hey, so hi everyone. Hi everyone. It's nice catching up here. I think our roots were origin from the couple of years before Marmeto, and this was when me and my founder friend Shashwat, I think it was his main idea to get into commerce problem. We were college grads then, and we understood that there was a problem of textbook rentings. In India, there is a culture where every semester, when we complete a course, we go back to a spot in the city, and then we give them the books of the older semester and then take the books from the for the new semester, and then we exchange some cash in between. We were doing the same, and we understood that hey, the end of semester there were like 2 months were booked by buses and crammed, that every student used to go there and do this. And we thought that hey, let's solve this, because this is like a problem for all. If I'm going to get, and that was the origin of when we got into what commerce would be like. That startup was the was called Catiners, and that went on for a while. Shashwat started it, and I joined in here and there. Was more into the PR and operations part of it. So that led to the seeds of commerce. And once we were done with our engineering, I was a electrical engineer deployed, and Shashwat was into a different startup. And we felt that hey, something is just not working right for us. So he proposed that hey, let's do something of our own. And that when led to okay, what problem do we solve now? And that led to what Marmeto started as. It started as a tech partner to solve tech problems and commerce problems specifically. And that's how we got going from there. And it's now 6 years now, and it's going pretty well.
That's really awesome. So starting from the early kind of college days with the textbook story. I actually had a previous podcast guest, Ibrahim, and he had a kind of similar story, but his was on, I guess all the college students needed all the same type of calculator. So he did arbitrage on the calculators. So
Yeah.
that's really cool to see. So you got started with Marmeto. You guys had the experience with the textbook, so you weren't totally new with e-commerce. How did you guys go and get the first couple brands and the first couple customers for you guys?
So bootstrap was the concept for us. I would say it was the only concept reason, because we all, like me, Shashwat, even Prabhat, the tech co-founder, we all come from very, very humble backgrounds, and all we saw was our moms doing bootstrappings beneath the house, our dad doing bootstrapping with the limited scheme of job that he had. So we this never came in our head that hey, you can get money to build your business. Like, it went strange in our heads. I felt that how would someone invest their money to build my business? And we thought that this is the only way. You need to have money to build your business. If you don't have, you need to generate it. So the first couple of clients I now when I see, I find it funny, is was we literally scanned through Facebook groups and literally did all the cold emails possible in the most personalized way. I feel today, now with all of this technology, it looked very simple, but 6 years back it was really difficult. We we create, and that's how we got a couple of acquisitions, the first few. And from there it we understood how powerful word of mouth is, because we had only that task to do, that job to do. There were not a lot of opportunities. So each opportunity we always delivered more than what was expected in terms of experience and technology. And I think that set the wagon wheel. So I think the first customers were from Facebook groups or some cold emails. It was a mixed clutter because we were doing everything possible to get some consumers. But yeah, that was the root of it. That's how it
Totally
started.
makes sense. So back in the day, you had to be really scrappy. These Facebook e-commerce groups, cold emails, and even then, back in the day, the tooling was not as many mail merge tools and all those kind of things. So you had to be really scrappy. Once you got your first couple customers, you guys did a really good job. So that word of mouth, the customer testimonials helped you guys grow.
Right.
So now you guys are obviously more established. So maybe you can talk about some successful case studies or customers that you're working with today.
I feel now when I see, even today when I see the whole, even the success of Marmeto, I would say today is all by delivering and giving the right experience. Today also, if you see the company, we got like 120, 130 team size as of now, and we only got 3 or 4 business team people. So our business team is only 5 folks, and the rest is all managed, still through word of mouth. So it's 6 years now, and I feel that that's the strongest channel. in how we operate. Currently, we work with almost all the premier enterprises and D2Cs in the space of e-commerce. You pick up Lenskart, we worked for them for a while. We were working with Boat in India, it's quite famous for a while. We were working with M Caffeine, we worked with Shishi Tatwa, we work with Super Kicks, we work with Borosil, MTR Foods, we even worked with ITC for a while. We worked with Sugar for a while. So it has been all the premier accounts that you see today, somewhere or the other. I feel if they are into e-commerce and on Shopify, we hold our hands high that we have worked with them.
That's awesome. Really cool to hear those types of brands, such as Boat, Lenscard, DC. That's really amazing to go from a early stage bootstrap, just a couple of you guys. And I think you had a really key point here is instead of trying to invest a lot in your sales team, really focusing, maybe have a few external facing salespeople, but most of your team really focusing on really making the service and the product you guys offer to these brands as good as possible. So
Right.
maybe we can talk about maybe some specific lessons that you've learned from working with all these brands. So I guess the first kind of key question I had was, what are the biggest things you guys, obviously it depends on the brand, some common gotchas that brands do in their kind of website design and just overall the CRO and stuff.
Because what do brands miss in these paths? Is that what the question?
Yeah, exactly. Common mistake.
I feel one of the common mistake that we always end up explaining is that you need to be clear of what your brand wants to do at what stage. Let's pick up a high volume D2C brand today. When you see their journey today, you see that, hey, their store looks cool, the store has this function, that function. And I say that, hey, don't look at the store today. You need to look at the journey of the store. Was the store the same 6 months back, or was the store same 2 years back, or was the store same even 5 years back? No, it wasn't. So it's a whole iterative journey. Today, a brand wants to launch, they pick up the store and they say that, yeah, this is what I want. No, this isn't. Your brand might in the early days would focus more on educating the people, why do you exist? After a while they would transit into, hey, when the product has reached people, they would transit into saying that, hey, we exist, shop from us. From there the journey would move into, hey, we exist, shop from us, we have cool things for you. The last thing could be, hey, we exist, shop from us, we have cool things for you, and we have reasonable ways to help you retain. So every stage the brand motto changes, and accordingly the online store also reflects the same motto. You can't, being first day in business, think of a high volume store and pick up that as a reference. No, look at that store 5 years back. Was it the same? It wasn't. And that's kind of slightly tricky when brands want to establish themselves as a brand, but they also want to at the same time sell more from their store, because obviously store is an online sales channel. So I say that you need to understand that when you want to educate, focus more on education. When you want to sell, focus on sell. If you want to focus on selling from your online store, be clear about it and live with it. Be happy with the trade-offs. You can't have a bit of everything, and then the result is also like a bit of everything. So that's the biggest mistake that I feel people do. Uh, the second mistake that I feel people do is they, while when they work on their brand, they forget that they are customers themselves also for a lot of brands. I say that, let's say we pick up a beauty and cosmetics brand owner. They would reach us and saying, hey, Saurav, we want to build a fashion brand. I would say that no problem, let's do blah blah blah. But they're like, hey, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And then I make them go back to the saying, hey, you yourself are a shopper. You're not just a brand owner. You, in your normal life, are also a shopper. You, let's say, buy a product, or you buy hyper local services, you use online services, you use Amazon, Flipkart, Myntra. In India, you use Swiggy, Blinkit, all of those things. Do you find these things there? And then I say, no, it's not there. And then I say, yeah, because when you become a brand owner, you become too possessive with the brand and you want to have everything there. But you need a third person to say that, hey, you are a customer also. And over exposing is not required, or overburdening is not required. You need to give right information. Pick up an example where, let's say, if you are on a product landing page, how much of description is enough? Because a brand owner would try to give all the possible description, but when they themselves become a shopper, they really don't consume all the information. They really consume some bits of it and they decide and they move on. But when they themselves become a brand owner, they have a very, or let's say when you go on a listing page, what all detail do you need to show on a listing page? You need to only show maybe the product USPs, You really might need to have a sticky filter because that's the action that people take on the listing page. As a consumer, I would do those actions. But when I become a brand owner, I often miss that and I feel, hey, we should have everything on the listing page itself. So I feel the biggest part of CRO, I feel, not even getting into details, is that you yourself are a consumer. Please think about it and then become the brand owner and get into that shoes and try to execute, because I think that's something that people often miss.
Yeah, I really like those two frameworks. I think the first one is, yeah, really figuring out where you are in your brand. If you're early on, maybe you want to focus on educating, right? People don't really know who you are, what you stand for, and stuff like that. So really focusing on that. But if you're a more established brand, you don't have to keep as much education there, and you can focus more on conversion. So I think that framework of thinking through where you are on your journey. And then I think the second thing I think is a really good point where brands don't really, as a brand owner, right? I think my customers might care a little more than they actually do, right? Everyone's really busy. So you have to really detach yourself. They're not the brand operator, right? So you have to really try to put yourself in the shoes of a customer who's never really heard of your brand before. What are they going to care about? I think you gave the example, right? No one's going to scan through a 50-point description. So really highlighting the key USPs there. I think those are really good frameworks overall to think about. Just going a little more tactical after that, any kind of comment that people kind of mess up with store performance in terms of speed?
Yeah, I feel it's a speed is such a thing which has a lot of permutations and combinations operationally in technology also. Like it would vary with zillions of factors. What I talk to consumers about it is that, see, if you want to have a really high performing store, you need to go less on content. You need to go, when content means you might have to go lesser on visual media, lesser on audio videos, lesser on descriptions. Or if you want to go onto the speed that, hey, I want to have a top notch speed, be okay to spend on technology. You can't spend less on technology, get to the speed, and give everything to the consumer. So, what I feel is brands often find themselves disturbed where they want to have a very high performing store, they want to have a very high audio visual medias there, and they really don't have that appetite of technology to be spent on. I feel technology plays that very deep role in it. Ideally, on any e-com store, especially like a platform where like Shopify where you work, definitely there are some level of dependencies of third parties and some level of inherent features. Anything between store speed of 60 to 80 in between desktop and mobiles are reasonably good if you have a high volume account, if you have an enterprise account and you have video contents, audio contents, all of that. And then yes, definitely you need to have a couple of tricks of, let's say, lazy loading is one of the most heard phenomena. And then tricks that, okay, how consumers can engage without the site being fully loaded. Like how you can have interactive GIFs and interactive mockups to talk to consumers while your site is getting loaded. So I think this is something that brands need to understand that, hey, if I'm not able to invest more on technology, I invest less on the content on the store. Some guiding content can be given through other social media channels and other point of communication that you're trying to do to your consumers. If you feel that yes, you have the appetite for technology, uh, invest in it, because that's the health of the online store. Your speed, how fast we respond, how we smile, how we get angry. The online store speed is exactly that. A low speed means I talk to you now and you responding after 5 seconds. That's very uninteresting. But if I want you to like quickly respond and resonate, I need you to be healthy. I need you to be, you need to be at the peak of your health in order to respond and communicate properly. And the same is with online store, that they need to be healthy inside. And that healthy inside requires a lot of technological investments. How you do on your body, it's no different than how much you do on your online store. And we should be able to pick up that. I think that's the most explainable answer for everyone around, that hey, it's no different.
It totally makes sense, right? There's no free lunch. If you want faster speed, you're going to have to invest in the right technology. There are a couple, I think, key points you mentioned, more tactical, such as lazy loading. Lazy loading is basically we don't load this stuff until we need it to reduce the first page time. And then I think the second thing is while the page is loading, making it more interactive with GIFs such as you suggested. Totally makes sense there. I think you mentioned you really have to invest in technology. So I know you guys are like a Shopify Plus agency. Are there any kind of apps or any tools you recommend for your clients that you guys have found pretty useful?
I think in every department of store, there are several apps that work well. Uh, but what we help brands is because that list is like really humongous. For example, let's say if you want to have a mobile app linked to your e-com store, we suggest them that hey, you know, move with something like an app maker kind of a setup where they have a pre-built integration. Let's say someone wants to go with a loyalty system. We say that hey, you know, there is no, what do you say, it's just on my head and now I'm missing the name. There's Pop Club, there is Nectar, there is Smile. No, then there is deeper integrations of Quicksilver. And then if you want to go into the delivery side of it, there is ShipRocket. If you want to go the payment side of it, definitely there is Pay and there is PayU. If you want to go through the buy now pay later kind of a model, definitely there is Simple. They're doing a good job. So I feel that list is humongous. What I tell brands is often that hey, you don't need everything every time, because even when you want to have all of this, that's again going to create impact on your store performance. Think of it like, if today I feed you with too much of information, you want certain level of protein in your body and I inject whole protein, you need some sort of fat, I inject it, your body is not going to accommodate that. It will take some time to absorb. And the same is with online store, that you don't need everything every time. You need to again have a trade-off that okay, I need to solve these two problems. If I need to solve retention as of now, I need to have only things focused on retention and the best of it. And once that's solved, I try to optimize it with maybe converting it into a one-time solution, or maybe optimizing that much bit as possible, or maybe letting go of certain other feature that I needed 2 years back. What brands miss is that what they invented a year back, they keep using year after year, even though if you really track data, that's not required right now. Because e-commerce trends are changing. There is a lot of change in how consumers are behaving, and that's an everyday change. Very recently, yesterday, I was hearing another podcast where some good founder was saying that, hey, we are tracking the changes every day, and we feel that it's changing every day for the last 1.5 years. Now, think of it, what we developed a year and a half back might have been obsolete. You need to track and let go of that feature on your store. So letting go of certain things in technology is also that I feel merchants are ready, they resist on, because they have already paid for something in the past and they feel that way, why is it that? But it's as good as you go to a restaurant, buy a healthy meal and you spend a good bucks of money, and you don't want to have it again because you feel that it served the purpose, it served the experience. Codings and features and functions are no different than that. So you need to let go of certain features to always be aligned that, okay, maybe 3 or 5 backend systems at a time, and accordingly move forward and then work with maybe a good partner or agency to understand that, hey, what are the 5 prominent things I need and everything else can let go. So then coming to the upper question of speed and all, that's also maintained. Your store sanity is maintained. Your code isn't very messed up, and you are also able to make best use of your store, and consumers also feel that hey, there is always a bit of a change in flux, there is always a bit of a change of experience, and it keeps the brand alive also. So that's what my opinion is.
Makes sense. I really like how you related the answer to a lot of your previous frameworks you mentioned. So I think the point about store speed, right? If you have 100 different apps, the speed is going to slow down. So really pick, which apps you want to maximize store speed. And then I think the fundamental thing where you're mentioning, you have to think about where you are in your journey. Things that might have been true 2 years ago might not be true now. And then I think previously how we talked about, you have to put yourself in the customer's shoes. You don't want to overload them, put too many things there for them. To really prioritize what offerings, what features, what apps you want to do and prioritize. I think that really makes sense. Oh, obviously, people are on these base Shopify stores and then they install these apps, maybe Shopify Plus. Any kind of tips on migrating from these other platforms? How is that kind of process like?
Yeah, so I think we have done a lot of migrations, and with new age technologies, and again, thanks to all the third party systems coming in place, migration is considered to be a very heavy job. It's just there in the outside world that hey, if migration is a very heavy lifting job, and I feel it is. But with all these current technologies coming in, let's say you have got extensions that can migrate your entire consumers order product data, then you have got like extensions which can clone your theme and maybe inject it on your store. So I feel there is a lot there that can be done. there is lesser of a manual work now involved compared to what it was even 6 years back when I see. So migration is pretty simple job in these days. It's just that yes, definitely it comes at a cost of what you have to let go. Now, for example, some platforms might have very fixed URL structure. And let's say if you have really banked on those kind of structures and did your entire backlinking, SEOs, all of that, it might take a hit. But then the question is that why do you want to migrate? Because there is also again a different problem that you might be facing. So to identify that if I have to change a platform, I need to be really sure of what I need to let go of, because each platform, though primarily they are all the same, but have some edge over one or the other. For example, let's say from a Magento to Shopify, when consumers migrate, they feel that, oh my God, this was so easy, because as an interface, Magento looks a bit complicated. Now it's the giant thing, and Shopify is the new cool thing that everyone is able to understand and pick up. But yes, you need to also understand that, okay, there would be certain XYZ features that you did there that might not exactly come the same way here. So the trade-off between platform migrations needs to be thought of. I would say that each platform, while at 90% level works the same, but yes, there is a 10% variation that each platform has, and they would have a big use case for it. So, for example, even on Shopify, when you go to Shopify Plus, you get the options to work around checkout. Now, Shopify has a standard that, hey, we definitely go with it at Plus, but we assure you that 99.9% time there is an uptime. So people know that if I'm not able to customize my checkout, but I can sleep in peace that my checkout is going to be seamless, my business is not going to drop, then you go with the trade-off. But if you feel that no, whatever happens, I need the customization there, and let's say $2,000 is something I can't afford, then know that okay, that trade-off will not work. Then don't move with the platform migration. And it really depends a lot on, I feel, partners and agencies. It's more of our responsibility to educate the merchants there that hey, what you get versus what you don't get. Because the whole D2C space is so fast that everyone just needs everything so quickly. And we say that, hey, it's not, it will take some time, it will take its own time to build. So move between platforms, 90% you will not find problems. You have tools probably to transfer everything from one to other spots. But at the same time, definitely there's going to be a 10% tweak. And that is one that you have to decide on, whether it's the SEO, whether it's the URL, whether it's the customizations across the store, whether it's like discountings that you were offering, or whether it's the kind of logins that you were doing, because each store might have different kind of. So these are some elementary things that will definitely going to hit your consumer experience for a while. It's for the greater good, and you are doing it for a long term benefit, and it's not like a quick thing.
Makes sense. So I think just summarizing here, there's a lot of stigma about migrations. You're going to have to manually copy everything. There's a lot of tools now that kind of help you with migrating maybe customer data, the product catalog. But there's obviously going to be some slight differences between the platform. They made different design decisions. So you have to really think through, hey, do those differences make sense for me? And then that 10% of differences, you're going to have to put in some work to really migrate those features that are new on the platform you're shifting to.
Right.
So next question, I'm just backtracking a little. So I think you mentioned when you were on your team, you guys only have, I think you have over 100 people. You only have five or so salespeople. So how do you structure your team? How do you think about hiring? Yeah.
So I think what we have conditioned ourselves as that technology is the core of Marmeto, and everything goes outwards. So this thought like really centralizes everything, that everything has to come from technology team and then get into ops team and get into business team, and that's how it goes outwards. What we have seen in a lot of businesses is that businesses bring and technology changes accordingly. What we have held on to is that no, technology decides what needs to be done, and ops and business change accordingly. So our primary teams are technology, that's the highest. In technology team, what we have factored is that we have got developers across different levels, that some have design experience, some have functionality experiences, some have design apps integrations experience. We have split them into it. And then what we have done is, basis of all these teams, we have put like team leads there, whose job is just to train and groom the development team. Each of these development team then works with a project manager setup, and the project managers have got, each project manager has got, let's say, a 8 to 10 kind of a development team model with, let's say, 2 to 3 QA models, a team lead signed in. So we have got like that kind of a model. We have, let's say, got 5 teams. As of now, we have, I think, got, yeah, five. The sixth one is in making. So that makes up to a 15 to 17 member micro teams, and they all work across different verticals. So let's say you have got some model of retainer accounts. So one manager works there, one level of enterprise accounts. And each of these managers then have a, let's say, senior manager and a support member. So that's how the operations is stacked. And then we keep the business separately. So the business has sales and marketing. And yeah, like I said, there are a handful of people there. So when we do to get into hiring on the development field, we really hire ground one force. We don't have very experienced folks there. Reason that we have our own model of functioning, which I feel is very difficult for someone to unlearn their language and then learn this, or unlearn their methods and learn this. So we try to get to the core of people who are at the first of their jobs. It helps us keeps the cost low also. It helps us make the people learn faster also. The adoption is high. There is lesser room for scope creeps there, because that's the first process they are learning, so they really don't deviate. But when the learned people come in, they know their way out and they have some level of pre-learned information that they want to put in, and we find it hard to do that. Yeah, we are still 6 years now. We are all been bootstrapped. So really focus that time is the only money that we have got, and the lesser you invest internally, the more you invest onto billable works, gets the job done. So our hirings in business is bring people who have traveled a lot, because I think business and sales is all about culture. It's all about resonating with people. So find people who like to listen a lot of music, find people who like to travel a lot. It resonates. And in technology, we like to have people who really are passionate about coding and haven't seen the world yet. So you bring them because there's a lot of process there. So these are some core things that we keep in mind. We ourselves as backgrounds, I was an electrical engineer. Shashwat was my batchmate. Prabhat is the only tech guy. Core, we are logical people. The company would see is very logical. So we feel that, hey, logic is something that someone should have. Language is something people can learn. So we try to have bring someone with basic logical skills and interactive skills, and we feel that everything else can be taught. So these are some primary things that we keep in mind while hiring.
Makes sense. So really focusing on the technical team, not just a couple of developers, but really breaking it down to team, people who are good with UI, people who are good with app integrations. And then also really training people, having high mentorship, especially people early in their careers who can filter your culture and your style of development. And then for on the business side, it's much smaller, but really having people who are well traveled, well cultured, and really can connect with your target customers and a deep relationship there. And then just a follow-up question here. What is the big focus for Marmeto or you personally for the next 6 months? And then just the long-term goal for you guys?
So yeah, I think for the next 6 months, definitely we are focusing on India, uh, Indian market, and we want to be uh, placed in India as the tech enablers and not just a tech agency. For example, we're working towards it's like even now on a very consumer mindset. With all the stories said, it boils down that okay, so basically what you do, you build stores. That's how the nutshell of consumers are, and we try to explain that oh no, it's not just building stores. We are building more than that. So the narrative has to change that we don't build just stores, we build companies that build stores. That's the long term game where we want to be into and we want to be positioned on. So we really focus a lot on what position we stand and how people perceive us. They should not perceive us just another tech company doing online store, because even in India, that's what other 2700 partners are doing, and we became the first in the plus partner ecosystem. Even though we are just 5 years in the ecosystem, we were so new, but still we were the first to achieve that. Reason because we our positioning was very clear. Like I said, for the brand, a brand should know that where and how they want to be. So we really at this stage are not in the zones of selling. We are not really focused on the sales side of the company. We're only focused on bringing the fundamentals right, and with that only we have been doing pretty well. It's profitable, it's going year on year great. So we feel that there is a lot more potential ahead. Focus on the Indian ecosystem, and maybe from next year onwards we will try to explore new markets and see some new services to add in. Definitely, for example, let's say we are testing uh, that what more can Marmeto offer apart from just core development on a platform? Should we have a new platform in order to explore, or should we have a new services on the same platform? So these are some questions that we are trying to decode. So next 6 months are going to be India focused. But the long term game is that yes, definitely we would also go overseas and we would really focusing on the right technology pieces.
Cool. So just rehashing here, I think what you're alluding to is, hey, we don't just build a one-off store quickly for you. We build a core tech, a core great foundation for your company so that your brand can be tech enabled in the future, and you can continually adapt, and your brand can continually do well. And really focusing on that for the next 6 months, and really focusing on the Indian market, and then maybe doing a little bit of exploration on other apps, services you guys can offer, and then in the long run, looking for external markets. And these are more kind of wrap up questions here. Any kind of just overall trends in e-commerce you're excited about?
Yeah, I think me and Shashwat have been discussing about this a lot. I think the retail integration is still out there, not touched. There are markets that are retail heavy and there are markets that are commerce heavy. But I don't see that they have still been able to match and collate. You see, there is quick commerce on its own, there is hyper local on its own, there is e-commerce on its own, and then there is retail commerce and so on. And I definitely feel that yeah, there is retail has its own challenges in India. There's a lot of still manual work and lack of systems in the core retail. So I feel that retail and e-com integration is something that I feel I'm very excited about. Which is something that I feel very excited about. I see Lenskart solved it like a great way. I'm a big fan of that. And I feel that, yeah, that's something that brands would move around because the way consumer experience is all being centered, brands who are missing on getting collected retail and commerce experience would lose out on it. So I feel that's something that really, if you're interested.
Makes sense. So we have these separated types of things like retail or e-commerce or quick commerce. But how does one brand manage all of those, not just doing them separately, but in a cohesive manner to get synergy? Makes sense. And then final question here. This is more of a fun one. Any great shopping experience you've had recently that you're really happy with?
I see all the brands that I work with. Genuinely, if I would have been not at Marmeto, I feel they are brands I couldn't afford. I often look at it and I say that, hey, only if I'm in Marmeto, I just know all of these other ones. I wouldn't have shopped about it. But now when I hear their stories, I feel that, hey, it's amazing to be a part of it. If I'm just a consumer, I would used to see shirt. For me, shirts were like black and white and gray and blue. That's the four colors. But now when I see the brands and the shirts, I get to get into their stories and I feel I love it. So it's a little difficult for me, but I feel I love it all. Recently went to a brand called Aristocrat and they handed me a couple of t-shirts and so it's a male wardrobe brand. And I love that. Then I very recently worked on Super Kicks and they have a drop model for like sneakers and all. And I got into that world and read that, okay, is this also a market? This is a crazy market. People are fans dying there to buy the kind
I
of
got you.
shoes. So I feel the whole perception for me to look at brands and products has changed now. I look at
I got you.
brands, look at their stories, and that helps me buy.
Yeah, that's like maybe you weren't like a shopper originally, like a big time shopper, but then working in the industry, you see all these brands and then you know about it and you're like, oh, this seems cool. Maybe let me check it out. I think it's pretty similar to me personally. It's like I'm not a big kind of shopper. I'd always do like a department store clearance kind of thing. But then you see all these kind of brands, you're like, oh, that kind of makes sense, and then you check it out.
Because you resonate to the story. And I often used to read that sales does not happen by selling the product, you sell the story. And then some brands who have really sold me the story, like we have developed their store, we have developed their online. But now when I go out in the market, I see the product in one of them. Like we are working with the US Polo. I've got a couple of them with me. I work with Equifax apples and I wear them. And I really post pictures and tag them and they feel like it's a marketing gimmick. But trust me, I get so happy when I hear their stories, and I really can't resist. So that's it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sun Mall podcast. Please make sure to subscribe.